The Lachlan Macquarie Institute is nestled in the fields of Murrumbateman, just north of Canberra. Its aim is to build wise leaders for Australia's future. Hello, I'm Laura Thomas, one of Lachlan Macquarie Institute's alumni. I'm so glad to be able to share with you the quite remarkable story of how LMI came into being. I'm in conversation with the man who played a critical role in that story. Tony McLellan has lived quite a remarkable life in business and philanthropy around the world. The Lachlan Macquarie Institute is today one of his greatest passions. Tony's story began on his family's sheep station, initially established by his Scottish grandfather 100 years ago. Tony, thank you so much for joining us. Can I begin by taking you back to your 15-year-old self?
Yes.
You're boarding at
Yes.
Scots College in Sydney.
Yes.
Your family are on the property and
Yes.
you get a call.
Pretty traumatic. My dad's very ill and I had to leave school when I was 15. I didn't have to, but I was happy to, and went back to the property. Well, it meant that I gave up all studies and I took control of this property, and I was living on this property on my own. I was cooking and sewing and cleaning and running the property. We had a team of men, obviously, but I was the boss.
What kind of lessons did you learn during that time where you're taking over the farm at such a young age?
I think the biggest challenge I had was planning. My dad told me what to do every morning. You know, today we're going to harvest wheat. Tomorrow we're going to fell timber. And I had to figure all that out, plot it out, lay it out on the calendar to work out a whole program for running this pretty complex sheep station. And the second thing I learned was to get things done. When the fence was down, you had to fix it. Not tomorrow, now. Now. But I don't have the fencing tools with me. Well, you better get them and get this done. And that was a very, very important life lesson.
So you met your wife Ray at 19, married at 20.
Yes. Great, great blessing that was. I was living in the hotel at Tottenham, and I came in to have breakfast, and sitting at my table was this pretty school teacher with the best legs in town. And I was blown away, had no idea who she was. And she was bold enough to chat to me afterwards and began a long, cautious courtship that lasted a year and a half. And we were married then when we were 20.
Fast forward another 20 years since you took over the farm.
Yep.
Age 36,
Yes.
you get another call.
Actually, I was age 35 when I got the call, but 36 when I took it up. And this was an amazing man. He became my mentor, my guide, my encourager, Peter Monk, who asked me to look at a project that he contemplated in Cairo, Egypt. And I'd had a lot of property development experience. And so we went with Ray, went to Egypt, went to London first to look at the drawings, then to Egypt. Came back and reported to him, and I said, it's sensational, but these are 5 things that I would do. And he said, Tony, I really appreciate that. I want you to go and run it. So here is a country boy at age 35 being asked to build a new city for 45,000 people in Cairo, Egypt. We learnt Arabic, we packed up the family, and we went to Cairo and commenced work. Hired 1,000 people and got stuck into building this city.
From there, you had a supercharged career, heading up resource, oil, gas, gold companies based in the US.
Yes.
But in your 40s, your personal life is falling apart.
Moved to Tulsa, to Houston, to Atlanta, and involved an enormous amount of travel. I traveled constantly. 1 year had 35% of my nights in a foreign country. Ray never knew where I was, what I was doing. And when we were in Atlanta, she couldn't stand me any longer and said, I'm going to go back to Australia. I can't live like this. And I'd become disinterested in her and all the things that she meant to me. And I said, oh, I've heard this before. I'm going to go and play tennis in a tournament in Florida. And I came back and she'd gone. I could not believe it. And the two sons were still there. I remember lying on the floor of the house crying in front of these two young men, so ashamed of myself, and a complete mess.
And about that time you were being, in your own words, pestered about going to church.
We met a man who was Egyptian, but educated in Australia, moved to Atlanta, and had started a new church. And he invited us to come along to his new church. We put it off, but finally on Christmas Eve went and absolutely loved it. And he came to see us the first few days in the new year. And by this time Ray had left, and he could see at once that I was a mess, and said, Tony, you need Jesus. And I said, no, I need help. I had no idea that Jesus was the source of the help. But we began a very intense conversation and prayed together, and I invited the Lord to come into my life. He'd been standing at the door knocking all of these years, and I let him in, and almost instantly realised it was my fault that we'd had this breakup. I would never have thought that my personality would have allowed me to admit that. Eventually, she agreed to allow me to come down and meet with her, which I did. And after a few days, we packed up, stopped in Tahiti on the way back. I'd had a lot of time there, and came back and began our new life in Atlanta, Georgia.
After Tony embraced Christian faith, refreshed and invigorated, he knew his life had to change. He founded 2 not-for-profit charities in the USA, where he was then living. He also joined the board of Opportunity International. He returned to Australia in 2001, joining Opportunity International here, and elected chairman of Habitat for Humanity Australia. In addition, he became chairman of a number of public companies in resources and mining. Then he met Jim Wallace.
After we were saved, Ray and I made a pledge to God to seek significance rather than success, and then was invited by Jim to join the board of Australian Christian Lobby, and before long got to really, really admire and respect him in every way imaginable. And then he did step down as managing director of ACL, and I became chairman and worked with his successor, Lyle Shelton. And at this time, about this time, he got this vision from God about forming the Lachlan Macquarie Institute.
And you put both your financial experience and your experience in property to help find the home for LMI.
Yes, it was a very timely thing in a way, that I'd had quite a lot of real estate development experience, and it was able to help in locating the property, negotiating the terms, and then subsequently negotiating to buy out the vendor's mortgage and put us in a strong financial position. And the organisation grew, got fantastic reputation with now 150 graduates, and we were very, very proud to be associated with it.
Of all the things you've done, and especially on your return to Australia, what has it been about LMI that has inspired such a commitment and, I have to say, a real generosity towards the work?
Oh, it's such a good question. I think working with Jim has been a tremendous inspiration. I know of his faithfulness. I know how often he communicates with God, much more than I do, and I'm really glad that he's around to pass on those ideas. And he's taught me a lot about that and about being patient and listening. I'm not that sort of person naturally. The other thing that I really benefit from is the fellows. These typically young people, your age, who are quality individuals who committed to improving their life and being very earnest about what they do. And in the last little while, when we've had the ability financially to make these contributions, it's so easy to pick LMI as the very first one to get started. And I have to tell you that in the blessing that God's brought on us in this last investment that I made, a new venture with CSIRO, we expect to have tens of millions of dollars to give away. And this is hard to believe. There's a country boy and his beautiful school teacher wife now sitting here ready to hand this money to worthy causes. I'm just so grateful that this has turned up for us.
To those who have brought LMI to being, I just say thank you. It's clear the passion and the commitment that they've put into it. It oozes into the course and is exemplified through all of the lecturers and through all the material and just the raw love of Jesus.
An absolute miracle of God, really. He has just ordained all the doors to open to get me here, and it's been such a privilege, and I can see so much work that he's doing in the people that we've met, the things that we've learnt, the relationships, and just being in this incredible place. It's so beautiful.
This has changed my life, actually, and that sounds a bit cliche, but to have such an intense period and all the things that we've had crammed into 3 months, and to be able to take 3 months out of my life to do this, the things that I've learned and the things that I'll take forward have really changed my life.
To those who have given us LMI, whether it's through McLellan Hall, which is behind us, or the ministry of Dan and Josh giving us all the teaching and sorting out all the people, just a huge, huge thank you that can't even describe the blessing that this has been.
Buildings like McLellan Hall are a wonderful gift and very important for organisations like LMI. And the battles that we fight in Parliament are really important and will have a significant impact on our country. But it's the people that really make the changes and the transformation. And the people who've come through this building today and in the future will go on to make changes for the sake of God in our country, I think, for a long time to come.
What would you say is the nature of the impact that LMI alumni have had on broader society?
I would say it's integrity. People who will do things for the right reason, not be swayed by society, and understand where the truth lies and where the correct procedure lies. It's not easy. It's not easy. We're challenged all the time, daily in our life, and it's just so encouraging to me to be with, work with, keep in touch with young people who look to this constantly.
Of all your achievements and successes in such a storied life, what has the love of the Lord Jesus meant to you, Tony?
Well, it's completely changed everything. Changed everything.